I'd like to call the meeting to order. First, I'm going to have Mr. Paul Ubon lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please rise.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Paul. I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Patricelli.
Present.
Councilman Torricello.
Present.
Councilwoman Diamond.
Present.
Will the clerk read the minutes of the previous meeting?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the minutes.
I'll second that.
Will you call the roll, please?
Councilman Torricello.
In favor.
Councilwoman Diamond.
In favor?
Mayor Patricelli.
In favor. We're going to go right into report of officers and committees.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I've prepared a report from the General Manager's office in regards to projects that we're currently working on in the city of Watervliet. A little bit of project management in here, buildings, and some of the policies that we're dealing with right now. So from the grants aspect, and the reason I'm here is because everybody's been requesting me to come back to do PowerPoint presentations. So here we are. A lead service line replacement program. That's one of the grants that we got. We got $540,000 awarded through a New York State grant. And with that money, we're doing it in two phases. Phase one, on 9th Avenue from 16th Street to 19th Street, we're replacing all lead service lines from the water main to the property right into the basement. And on 9th Avenue, that's one of the oldest mains in the city. So we're going to replace that whole main and then all of the laterals that are lead-based right into the house. The target date is construction season 2020, which is March or April. Phase two of the work plan, we're continuing to work on it, but we're going to make it available to any other residence that has lead water lines coming from the main. There's going to be an application process that we're currently putting together. We're hoping to get the application process out to the public by late January. The second grant, and probably the biggest one, well, definitely the biggest one that we got, is a $3 million grant from the state to work on capital projects at our filter plant. The filter plant's over 100 years old. It's kind of showing its wear. So we're rolling this plan out in phases. The first phase, we're going to target water quality and technology. For technology, what we're talking about is we currently have a system that reads all the gauges for filtration, adding chemicals, when it's stirred, when it's rotated. So all of those are going to be replaced. The system that we have right now is what they call a proprietary system, which means that there's only one vendor that can work on it. And that vendor is in Connecticut, the state of Connecticut. So it's quite labor intensive for us to clear time to get that one vendor here to work on the system. And obviously, because it's a proprietary system, it's much more expensive for them to come to work on it because we can't call anybody else to work on it. So we're looking to replace that and put in a system that we can get, obviously, vendors that are closer to us and numerous vendors that will be able to work on it. The work plan is currently in development. After that, the focus then turns to structural improvements. The brick veneer that's on the water plant, window replacement, roofing issues, and additional security enhancements, cameras, fence lines, things like that. We're going to get some equipment that's going to help us with the chestnut harvest at the reservoir. We used to have an airboat. We don't have the airboat anymore, so we're looking to purchase some more equipment that is going to be a little bit more successful for us to kind of control that chestnut harvest that kind of gets away from us, especially in the late summer. The third project, the City of Watervliet Bike Path. It's about a $1.73 million award. I've got Dan Rourke and Tom Baird here from Barton & LaJudas. They're going to get a little bit more in depth when we get into new business about the expansion of that project. This project is probably, from a long-term standpoint, one of the most cost-saving projects that we have. It's the CSO elimination grant. We've got $1.4 million, and we're still trying to figure out what's the best way for us to spend that money to set us up moving forward. So the CSO elimination is, we currently have, through our sewer system, we have a combined sewer overflow, which means that the storm water and the sewer water combines. What we're trying to do is separate those two, because we don't want to send storm water down to the sewage plant to be treated, because it doesn't need to be treated. It should go right into the river. The sewage water that goes down to the river is what needs to be treated. The problem is we pay by the amount of flow that goes down into the water treat or the sewage treatment plant. So we're paying to treat stormwater, and we want to stop that. The way we stop that is we separate those to make sure the stormwater goes into the river and the sewage goes down to the waste treatment plant. If we do that, and when we do that successfully, that's going to mean a lot of cost savings for us. Currently, we're forced to get into a CSO pool community, and everybody that's in that community has to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to the city of Albany for them to treat our water. Once we do that, we have the chance of getting out those pool communities. Food scrap grant. This picture was obviously taken in like a funhouse mirror or something, but we got $131,000 awarded. It doesn't seem like a lot, right? But it's a salary of one full-time employee that we can dedicate specifically to the Watervliet Organic Waste Program. Now, with that, we can also purchase one electric vehicle, which is a gator, and we can utilize that gator for picking up the organic waste. What we'd like to do is get more people involved in the organic waste program. What that is food scraps, right? Especially in the senior center here. We have lunch here 5 days a week?
It'll be 4 now.
4 days a week.
Yep.
So we'd like to take those food scraps just here alone and use those in the WOW program. That eliminates it from the garbage pickup. As you can see on here, our garbage pickup right now, we pay $62 a ton to dump garbage at the landfill. And for recyclables, it's $92 a ton. So the less money that we have to bring to the landfill, the more it benefits us. So the less weight that we bring down there, the more it benefits us, the less we have to pay. So we're going to be working in the next few months to try to increase participation in the WOW program, specifically for those food scraps, pull those out of the regular garbage, and hopefully reduce our tonnage at the landfills.
Is this for residents, a
Residents.
residential home?
Yep.
Or does it have to be an organization or a restaurant and things like that?
Anybody.
Anybody?
Yep. If we're eliminating that tonnage, we want to get as much of that food scrap out of the garbage and into the WOW program.
So would you have like a separate, container or something like that?
Yeah, there's a small green container that everybody uses, and the food scraps go right in.
He's got him right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's about, I think about 90 some
90.
that are participating in it.
So we have two grants that are similar from a title standpoint. The Local Waterfront Revitalization Program, LWRP. There's two of them. The first one is the Congress Street Bridge. So we received a grant for $170,000, which we're going to share with the City of Troy. This grant is to study how we can access the Congress Street Bridge to get it into Hudson Shores Park, to revitalize our shorefront. The City of Troy is going to use it because they want to reconnect River Street. Right now, if you go over the Congress Street Bridge into Troy, it dissects River Street. So they want to try to reconnect River Street, yet still have a way for the bridge to come over. That's a big business district for the City of Troy, so they want to make sure that they can reconnect that. And for us, we're trying to do work on the shoreline, trying to get another way for people to get to the shoreline, both residents from the City of Troy if they choose to, but our residents as well. Eliminating the fact that they have to cross under 787 down 23rd Street. You might be able to walk up the bridge and cross right over 787 that way and come right down into the park. So we have some meetings scheduled for this. The project initiation meeting is going to be scheduled. Joe can add this to his plate late January, early February, and that's when we're going to start having the conversations with the City of Troy and try to figure out what works for all of us.
Yeah. I know that there's also a study or involvement that has which is a Main Street Development Program. Are you coordinating with them, or are they invited to the meetings? So you're not, everybody's incorporated. That'll be incorporated in. Okay. Because it may not be the greatest idea to, I mean, if we're looking to, increase the activity on Main Street, right, it may not be the greatest idea to veer off there, or to have two spots or something.
Well, one of the ideas with this grant, and I think one that the city of Troy has brought to our attention, is trying to take the arc out of the bridge and make it flat, which would help us from a business district and a waterfront district standpoint. Easier to cross that bridge, easier for people to come over. But that's a good point. Because when we talk about the LWRP for the shoreline, I met with Dan Biggs from Barton and LaJudas the other day in regards to the, Weston and Sampson, in regards to the waterfront stabilization project. So this one has $511,000 awarded to it. It's a shoreline stabilization and preparation for construction in the park. Weston and Sampson, they're engineering the project. They're currently taking bore samples to figure out from an engineering standpoint the stability of the park. But one of the things, and this kind of brings back to what you were saying, Councilman, is that we want to look to see what our long-term goal for that park is, right? Because we've talked about, the barge being there, they're not there anymore. Is it worth our time to maybe put a permanent structure in there? And if so, who pays for that? But regardless of that, that aspect of it, if we are planning on doing that, some of these things that we put into this project may change based on what our long-term goal for that.
Yeah, I think they're both great ideas, but I think they got to make sure they have to be coordinated.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%.
Don't you think that park could be used as a multi-use with business ventures on one floor and then housing on the second floor, rather than just a park?
Yeah, I just don't know, from a permitting standpoint, what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. But I don't think anything's off the table, to be honest with you.
Food for thought.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So one of the grants that we've had for about 2 years is a DASNY grant, which is the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. We received a $125,000 grant. Now initially, the original scope of this grant was to move some of the offices in City Hall from the second floor down to the first floor to improve accessibility for seniors and handicapped. We're still going to do that project, but what we've done is we've reached out to the Dormitory Authority and Assemblyman McDonald to ask if we might be able to repurpose this. What you're looking at right here is our current boiler system that's located directly under the police department in City Hall. It's feast or famine with this beast. You either get no heat at all, or it's 142 degrees in every office. So we're trying to make it, obviously, number one, a little more energy efficient. But if we can't do it with this particular system, what we're trying to do is bring in experts from the outside from an engineering standpoint to say, if we can't use this, what can we use for the building we have? So our building is an old building. We have several things that kind of get in our way from an HVAC standpoint. Concrete floors, concrete ceilings, concrete walls. They're not really conforming to drilling and putting vent work and things like that in. So we're hoping that when we get some consultants in here, they'll give us an idea of, from a scope standpoint, what we can use in the city and for our building, and then we can move forward on the RFPs and bidding it out. This is a multi-phase project from the standpoint that this boiler isn't our only issue. As you see here, there's steam pipes. This is an old steam system in the city, so it goes through radiators. These steam pipes go through a crawl space that go from the police department into City Hall. And some of those steam pipes leak. And what they do is they create a humidity in the back booking room of the police department. And we have thousands and thousands of dollars of computer equipment back there, a fingerprint machine that's about $35,000 retail. Not good for a human environment, all right? So we want to make sure that the entire scope of this project is engineered and we rectify all of these problems instead of Band-Aids and bubble gum, which we've been using for the last few years. Streetlights. So we have the National Grid has a program where you can actually purchase the streetlights that are on the street. Some of the streetlights that are out there, the ornamental ones that you see on 19th Street, you see in the parks, we already own those. But the rest of them are National Grid property. So National Grid actually puts a program out there where you can purchase the streetlights from National Grid. We have about 573 total lights. If we purchase the lights, the potential savings is $58,000 in energy and $43,000 in maintenance, and that's per year. We need to weigh the upfront cost, but the other thing that we have to kind of anticipate is maintenance. Because if you buy them from National Grid, then National Grid doesn't come and work on them for you anymore. So we have to figure out who's going to maintain our lights if we decide to purchase them. And then we have to consider that in a cost-benefit analysis to make sure that that works for us. Can we afford a maintenance program? Can we afford this purchase? We're going to meet with the New York State Power Authority, who actually acts as kind of a go-between between National Grid and the municipalities. And they're going to give us some ideas with purchase versus maybe we just change the lights into all LEDs, and then we see about a $40,000, $50,000 saving per year just with that changeover.
Chief,
So you have
does the city want to be in the electrical business? You see what we went through already for the last 3-4 years.
Right.
One light's on, one light's off. It was said that it's cheaper to let the lights burn than to fix. So before you consider this or go into it, consider the fact that I don't think the city should be in the electrical business.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. But we need to make sure that we know what options are out there in order for us to kind of make sure that we don't go down that path. Right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So speaking with the city of Albany, they've started to change theirs. They've got some pretty fancy lights out there. There's actually an app that they can actually dim and raise the lumens on the street lights themselves. They went from a $5 million budget per year to $1.5 million for their street lights. Now there's some drawbacks, right? National Grid doesn't really keep good records on their street lights and where they are, how they're interconnected, are they in a circuit, are they individual? So a lot of this for the city of Albany has been trial and error, which is why we bring the Power Authority in to kind of get us through the weeds for that. Additionally, we would qualify for a $40,000 Smart City grant if we decided to purchase this. And we're also looking to see if we can get some money from the Financial Restructuring Board that would help support this. Just because we get upfront money for a purchase doesn't mean that it's a good purchase. Things like Mr. Eubank brought up. Can we sustain a maintenance program in the city of Watervliet moving forward once these lights become ours? All part of the cost-benefit analysis that we have to do. The Dutch Reformed Church. Save your comments till the end. So we're going to put a new roof installed. Actually, it's pretty much framed in right now where the old steeple was. The west end of the structure will be closed up next week. The roof on the south side of the building will be replaced along with the facade work on the front of the building. All the deteriorating brick on the rear of the building as well as the south side of the building will be replaced. And next council meeting, we're going to be requesting permission to bid for the new furnace for the building.
We don't, right, as we talked earlier, we do not have a cost on that this year, right?
We do. I can refer to my notes. What we've spent so far?
Yes.
Is that what you're looking for?
And what do we have left?
What we spent so far was approximately $143,000, and then the remaining cost is estimated to be about $90,000. That depends. That includes the boiler system, not knowing what the boiler system is doing.
May I interject? It seems as though the decision has already been made that we're going to save the building and we're going to use the building. Has there any been discussion, especially with the new council people, the feasibility of putting this kind of money into the building? New boiler, new electrical, new floor, water problem in the basement, wall structure of the building. Maybe some consideration should be given that this building be raised. I'm not saying that's the ultimate, but I think a decision, from what I gathered with these comments, the decision has been made to refurbish the building. Or am I speaking out of turn?
It would seem more so that we've been going down that path since the very beginning when we actually took down the tower and remove the bell and then put the roof back on. I don't know of any other path that we've been talking about as far as raising, and also the alternatives to it. I think we were in that limbo of saying, is it worth it? What are you going to do with it? And therefore, there's been no real discussion. The only thing that you could do with after there's no going back after you raise it. So the only thing you have left is going to be a parking lot.
Which is essential.
Yep. Yep.
You need parking.
Yep.
Is that true?
Yep. You certainly do. Yep. You do. But it's another building that we have lost. You know, a historic building that we've lost. You know, among others.
So I think that what we're doing now, from the aspect of next meeting, we're going to be talking about maybe going out to bid for a furnace for the building. That's when the council has the opportunity to weigh in on what they believe should happen with the building moving forward. And I think we just continue down that path as we move forward.
That makes sense.
But the city's already invested how much?
$143,000.
$143,000 that has already been invested to get it to this place, this status right here.
Right.
All right.
It was a grant, but still in all, so it's an investment.
So this is one of these outside of the box programs that we got into. This is 2112 4th Avenue in the city of Watervliet. It was an abandoned property, a vacant property, probably a zombie property, that was out there. We purchased it from the land bank. We have about $19,000 invested in it right now from purchase and closing costs. The rough estimate of rehab costs is somewhere in the ballpark of $85,000. Possible value of that property after rehab is $115,000 to $130,000. So when we meet, what we do is we deliberate, right? We talk about things like, okay, who does the work on it? Who project manages? Who's in charge of the guy that's doing the work on it? How do we handle change orders, increase in costs? So we project $85,000, but what happens if that starts going to $90,000, $95,000? All part of that cost benefit analysis that we do. So what we've done is we've come to the decision that we're going to seek a resolution from the council to sell the property. Strictly from a manpower aspect, we just don't have the horses to monitor this project, much less work on the project. So we think it's in our best interest to put it out there for sale and try to recoup the money that we have invested in it right now. Now, we're not saying that this isn't a good idea in the future once we kind of get everything where we need to and start getting into this program. Just from an overall standpoint, from the people that were involved in the meeting, we just felt that right now may not be the time for us to get into this project. So we've noticed that a lot of the facilities in City Hall are in disrepair. This is the third floor bathroom, and I've got a close-up of it. You can see that right here, the urinals aren't connected. There's constant running water in the bathroom. This bathroom's been in disrepair for, I would say, at least 2 years, maybe 3 years. Just nobody paying attention to it, nobody's fixing it, nobody's doing anything to try to get it into repair. City Hall, the roof. We have soffit issues, and this is the south side of the building. Now, if you're on 787, and I just noticed this today, when you're on 787 and you look at the south side of the building, which is right over the driveway between our building and the two-family house next door, this soffit is actually pulling away from the roof line. It's years of deterioration, there's water intrusion that's in there, and it's actually pulling away from the slate roof. This is one particular area, but it's by no means the only area of City Hall that's running into those issues. This is a puddled water area on right over the booking area of the police station, and right here are two very soft spots in the roof that are very decayed. So we had a couple of contractors come look at the roof, but what we've done is we've made contact with a company called Tremco, and what they do is they give us a spec, an overall picture of what we're looking at, and they prepare that spec for us. They don't bid on the roof. They don't bid on replacing the roof. They don't RFP it. They give us the spec and they say, here's what you need, and it allows us the opportunity to go out, RFP it, and then put it out to bid. So that's what we're going to be doing with the roof. Windows. Most, if not all, of our windows are in disrepair. You can notice that these two windows that are on the rear of the building on the 3rd floor don't even have the storms on them anymore. Majority of the storms have either fallen off or are in the process of falling off. There's no buffer anymore. And like I said, with the furnace, the issue is that it gets very warm inside the building, and a lot of these windows just aren't operable. And if you can open them, there's no buffer. All you hear is road noise, so you can't hear anything inside the offices once those windows are open. So we're going to try to get out for the entire project. Now, one of the things that we need to be sensitive to, and I'm not saying that that has to guide us, but the City Hall building is a very old building. And when we go out looking for state funds, one thing that they're very cognizant of is historical parts of the building. So when we go out to bid, that bid might be more expensive because they want us to stay with a certain window, a certain type, a certain kind of architecture. So we're going to have to kind of keep that in mind as we move forward with this process.
Again, may I interject?
Absolutely.
Being you have a facility, as you stated, does it make sense to obtain a parcel of land, put a new structure up, and consolidate the people involved? Take that building, I'm sure some company would love to buy that building and make apartments out of it. Something to consider. You got an old building, and I understand what you're talking about. This has to be repaired, that has to be repaired, etc. Something to consider.
Absolutely. I think everything's on the drawing board. And don't ask if you can interject anymore, because you're just going to do it anyway. All right? Paul.
You know, years ago when you guys took over the church over here, that's what the whole reason for the church, the city taking the church was to move City Hall and the court and everything over there so it was wheelchair accessible. You're already going to take and put in a new heater over there. You're going to revamp the building anyway. Is it something that you can consider putting in the new floor, making it ground, and make it a nice, you know, new setting on the inside and still have the historical on the outside?
It's a possibility. The issue is the church is nowhere near big enough to house everybody that's in City Hall. The reason the court was kind of ruled out is because there's not really a good access for us to get prisoners back and forth. And if we talk about putting a holding cell in there, then that takes the rest of the room that we might have had out of there. It's not good for anybody to walk a prisoner from the police station in City Hall across the street to the Dutch Reformed Church. So in order to avoid that, we would have to put cells in there, holding cells, and then cameras, and then a way to watch the prisoners. So once we added all that infrastructure and all that room, then really there wasn't room for anybody else. So we need to weigh that from the aspect, is there enough room there, number one? Maybe we can move some people out of there, but it doesn't rule out the work that we may have to do on City Hall. But it's a good point.
Can we, next time we go to take over a building or something, look into that first? Because that's the whole reason you took the building. And now you've looked into it and said it's not going to work for us. Now you're stuck with the building.
Yeah, I don't know that that's the whole reason that we took over that building.
I know that's what the plan was.
Right.
That's what it was sold to the city as.
Well, I'll be honest with you, it's banter, but it never, from a police aspect, if you asked us right now, we would tell you there's no way that that's going to work. So if it was never consulted with any of the police chiefs moving court into that building. Flooring. So we have a beautiful tile floor on every floor of City Hall, but years and years of wear on that floor, years and years of wax, never having been stripped, is really showing its age to the point where some of it becomes slippery with the slightest bit of water. So we actually had a contractor come in today, and he did a small patch on the second floor, and the amount of dirt and grime that he took off the floor and the difference between the floor that he refinished and the old floor is phenomenal. So we're going to look forward to putting this out to bid. And again, it's a small thing, right? But the difference in when you walk into City Hall and you see clean floors. Mark Cady had his guys they brassoed the banister today, right? Yeah. Something as small as that, it looks brand new, and it brings the history right back into the building. And it gives you, and this may sound kind of fruity, but it gives you a sense of pride walking into a building that you know now is coming back to life. And I think that's what's going on with City Hall right now. So the fire department, we had some issues in the fire department, we had some electrical issues. There were some renovations that were done over there that were really poor quality. And it left the kitchen area with some faulty electrical wiring. Ground faults would trip. There's no connection to the electric radiators that were on the north wall of the rec room. The outlets on the wall were inoperable. And all the issues have been addressed in conjunction with the uniformed firefighters. You know, listen, that's their house. They live there, right? They take pride in it, so they did the majority of the repairs to correct that. The flooring. The rec area, again, was painted, and it was painted with, you ever see those garage floors where they put the sparkles in them? It's got an enamel. That was the idea. That's what we're going to use for those garage floors. It didn't look like it does on the commercials. It scratched, paint peeled away, it just looked terrible. So we made an agreement with the UFFA. We bought flooring, and they're going to pay for the installation of the product. So we shared services, shared costs with the UFFA to get that rec room taken care of. A hot water tank. They had on-demand hot water tanks, but the technology is nowhere near where it is today. We got rid of the on-demand. The on-demand is great from doing a dishes standpoint and things like that. But when you talk about 15 firefighters jumping into the shower at one time, you just don't have the capacity there to keep the hot water going. So we went to an 80-gallon commercial hot water tank. We already had a gas line in there. The new system provides a supply of hot water. It accommodates multiple showers, and it's more efficient, believe it or not, than the on-demand system. Equipment, and again, this is cosmetic stuff, right? Simple equipment like cord reels. We actually had electrical cords that dangled from the ceiling that they would connect to the apparatus, certain items that were in the apparatus that needed to be charged up. Well, what happens is that if we forget to unplug that on a call, then there's another cord that we lose, right? Or do we lose the electronics that are inside because we didn't detach them? So we installed cord reels that actually come down and that will hang from the ceiling. We don't have to worry about people tripping because we are self-insured for workers' comp now. And it prevents a lot of the accidents and damage to apparatus as they exit the building. Senior Center. If you look around, you see these thermostats that are on the wall, Wi-Fi thermostats. Keeps us in touch with the temperature inside of the building. We can monitor it at any given time to make sure the furnace is functioning. And again, it's a small little thing, but it's a step in the right direction. Furniture, Mr. Eubank. Furniture in the lobby of the Senior Center.
Beautiful.
Mr. Eubank had a nice little nap prior to the meeting in the new furniture. Again, cosmetic, right? But it's a step in the right direction. Gives a feeling of pride walking in here. We are. $50 an hour. Prevailing wage. The dome. So one thing, and this is certainly a testament to Mr. Cady, one thing that we noticed is the dome is in very high demand. There's a lot of people that want to rent the dome, which is the recreation facility over on 13th Street. So having that in mind, we're always looking for a revenue stream, right? But we want to make sure that we're taking care of our residents at the same time. First thing we found was that there was numerous keys that were passed out to different groups, and they were using those keys at any point in time to come in and use the dome, regardless of the schedule. So the first thing we did was we changed the locks, like any good landlord would. Once we changed the locks, we got new keys, and now we're limited. We always have a dome attendant there, and he locks and unlocks the building as these groups come in. Floors. We utilize shared services with the school district. The school district actually has a machine that they clean the gym floor with. We used that over at the dome yesterday, and it looked fantastic. It took probably 4 layers of dirt off of the basketball courts. So we're going to be recontacting them to do the entire floor. The schedule. We put the schedule on a shared database, so there's 5 people that work for the city that actually have access to that schedule at any time, so we don't have to worry about double booking or open dates. And rentals. We're developing a workflow for rentals. Part of that is obviously the rate, but the other part is we need to make sure that we're getting insurance information from these groups from the outside. In case there is an accident inside the dome, we need to make sure that they have their own insurance. Day-to-day operations. We're working with the department heads to maximize resources and the management of those resources. We're establishing a citywide work order system to track requests and measure response and then costs assigned to those requests. We're establishing technology for vehicle and building maintenance logs, programs to proactively address issues, track repairs, and asset management so we don't run into the problems that we're seeing now on our buildings, with our vehicles, and with our facilities. We're going to refine workflow to vet unnecessary additional council meeting agenda items and provide adequate information for the council to assist in the process. We're going to add plows to 2 of the F-250s to increase efficiency of snow removal and provide additional equipment and resources. Expanding, I apologize for the typing here. I know, I knew you were the first one to pick up on that. Expanding sanitation services to the Maplewood area. We already do that, but we actually picked up a couple extra blocks with the town of Colony. Shared services increases revenue and reduces our cost to a certain extent with the agreements that we have with the town of Colony and using their landfill. We're going to work with code enforcement personnel to examine city properties to ensure compliance and provide recommendations as to repairs and routine maintenance of our city buildings. Establishing uniformity and consistency in the processing and payment of employee co-pay submissions. We've already sent emails and letters out to all of our employees to say, here's what you get reimbursed for, here's what you don't get reimbursed for, so we can establish that consistency moving forward. We're working with our current healthcare broker to maximize savings and control costs with the existing healthcare that we have. We're fostering productive relationships with entities like the Watervliet Housing Authority, who let us use their snow blower for the Christmas tree lighting at Hudson Shores at Memorial Park. Albany County has already lent us machinery for snow removal, and local municipalities to increase access to shared services. And it's our hope moving forward that this is going to be a mutual beneficial relationship. That at some point in time, they're going to be asking us for machinery. They're going to be asking us for manpower, and we'll be able to return those favors that they've done for us in the past. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Good job.
Yep, thank you, Mark.
Can I ask a couple questions, Mark?
Yeah, sure.
Or just, with respect to the dome, is there any kind of advertising or publicizing, to let organizations know that that is available for rent?
The only thing we use right now is word of mouth.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, from a capacity standpoint, we don't have a rec director.
Right.
So we're kind of overburdened with the response that we have just with word of mouth. I think moving forward, it's probably something that we can look forward to once we figure out from a recreation standpoint how that's going to work. But it's certainly something that we'll look forward to.
All right, good, thanks.
Sure.
Mark, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
In regards to the water on 9th Avenue, upon the completion of the water replacement, are we going to repave the entire surface of 9th Avenue, or are we going to just patch it again?
No, we're repaving the entire service, but what we're trying to do is get in contact with National Grid to make sure that we're not going to pave it in July and then they're going to install gas mains in August. So we're trying to work that aspect out with them first. But our intention is to do a mill and fill of the entire 9th Avenue.
Actually, you reminded me of something. Thank you. You said that when that project is done, there's going to be a lead pipe replacement program for citizens throughout, right?
That's correct.
Is there a list of who knows who has a lead pipe going into their house?
Right. So part of that program is the city Watervliet Water Department personnel goes into the house, inspects the lateral to make sure that it is lead and that it conforms with the
No, at their house, but for future residents, is there a list or is there some? I mean,
No.
You said that the residents can contact the city to find to get involved in this program.
Right.
How do they know? How do they know? They'll make a request and somebody will come into their house and do an examination?
That's correct. What
Okay.
we'll do is we'll take the application that they give us for the
Got it.
replacement. The first step of the application process is an inspection of the property to make sure that it is lead.
All right. Sorry to take everybody's
Not at all.
That's what it's for. Yeah.
Good question.
Why are you just limiting it to lead lines? Suppose a person has a galvanized line.
The grant limits us to just lead line replacement.
Again, you're doing it for a reason. You're going to go back down the road and excavate the street when the galvanized line bursts and rip the street all up. You got it ripped up. Why don't you replace them all? Get it over with.
because we have to stay within the aspects and the stats of the grant. The only way that we can do that is replace lead lines only. You know, the problem is, and listen, it's not like we haven't thought of this, right? The last thing we want to do is mill and fill a street and then 2 months later have a water main break. But unfortunately, in the city of Watervliet, it's kind of the way things work, right? We can't predict what's going to happen to any lateral. For us to endure the expense to fix it prior to it being broken, it really just from a financial standpoint doesn't make sense for us to do this right now. The grant money is only for the replacement of lead lines. So that's the only thing that we can focus on.
Is that because of health reasons?
It is. It's, the grant is from the Department of Health.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mark, just a quick question on
Sure.
that, just to follow up what he's saying. Are we taking it to the key box?
Yes.
Or are we going
No,
to the house?
all the way to the house.
All the way to the house?
Yep,
So
goes
then
from the main all the way to the house.
Maybe my cat will drink the water then.
We can only hope.
My cat will drink the same water.
Yeah, smart cat.
Thanks, Mark. I think you could see by the presentation that we've been sort of looking at this a little bit differently lately. The buildings are in need of a lot of repair. Those windows, the heating systems, and everything else that we have been just completely to a point where we got to do something about it. Nothing's going to get better by just waiting and seeing what we're going to do further on down the road. Some of this stuff has to be worked on now. So we're going to proceed on it. We're going to be looking at it, doing the best we can with as much as we can within the guidelines we have. And also, hopefully Amanda will be able to find that money in the budget and we'll be able to go from there. That's her first job as a director. Thank you, Amanda. We go in from, is that it, Mark?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Old business?
Your Honor, right now, we'd like to ask Joe Lasvita to come forward with his family.
I have the distinct honor and privilege tonight to swear in Joe Lasvita for the new position as a general manager. Joe, if you place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. I, Joe Lasvita,
I, Joe Lasvita,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of general manager
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of office of general manager
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
I know. Congratulations.
Oh, okay.
Congratulations.
Did you say? Joe, you want to sign? Yeah. Did you get it? Okay. All right, well, thank you. Even though it's been a little, Joe's not on board yet, but he's been working very hard answering all those emails, and I do send out a lot. So he's been answering them and working on it. So can't wait to get started on a full-time basis and drive him crazy, so officially. Anything else under old business?
No, sir.
Under new business?
Yep, new business. The first thing I'm going to do is ask for Dan York and Tom Baird from Barton and Judas to give us an overall scope of the bike path project for Broadway in the city of Watervliet.
Okay, Dan Rohr from Barton and LaJudas, Tom Baird, also from Barton and LaJudas. So we were here last February, so just really want to give a quick update on Watervliet Bike Path project, what we've kind of done over the last year and what the plans are for this coming season. So just a quick, brief history. The project was initiated by the city back in 2013. Planning study through the city and CDTC, and they came up with the alternative of putting bike lanes out on Broadway. We were brought on board in 2018 after the city received federal funds to actually build the project. So since 2018, over the last year, we've been kind of moving the project from the planning stage through engineering, and next year we'll be into construction. So what was the project funded on? These general project objectives. Generally, we need to get from where the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail ends at 4th Street and connect it to Hudson Shores Park. Ultimately, that's the goal of the project. That's what the money, the grant is for, what we need to accomplish. So when we were brought on board, the project had about just under $500,000 in construction money. We were able to help the city to increase that to just over $1.2 million. So last fall we went out to bid, received 3 bids. Low bid was $1.7 million, a little bit higher than what was funded. So there's a difference of $500,000. So since then, we've been working with the city and the contractor to get all the paperwork in place. Once this project is awarded to the contractor, we will again work with DOT and CDTC to increase the project funding, which on the merits of the project, we will be able to supplement that $500,000 back into the project, which the project funding is 95% outside of the city. So 80% from federal government and 15% from the state, 5% is the local share.
Yeah, so of that difference, that $500,000 we're short, the city will receive 95% of that in grant money from the state. That's working well. The city has done a great job with helping us, back us up with that. Going with DOT, the project has a lot of merit, as Dan said. It's part of an integral link in the whole system too. So with those going for it, we're able to get that extra money. Some of the discussion about the low bid is some of the prices have really risen a lot. I'm sure everybody involved with bidding and projects has seen that recently. The original estimates were done on previous projects and the statewide averages for this area. And just a lot of the prices just went up. DOT understands that because they see it all around. So it's a little easier to get the difference in funding based on previous experience on many, many other projects that are going on in the area now. So with that, we'll be able to have a fund for the project.
Can I just ask, are we responsible for 5% of the $500,000 or 5% of the 1.7?
1.7. Only 5% of the 1.7. I was going to say 95%, but I didn't want to take it.
I know.
So the project schedule, so we opened bids in October, just working on actually getting the contract executed, and we are planning to have the award set for February, and construction will start at the end of March. 3 months construction punch list. We should be done by July of this year. So some few things, small things have changed since we were here last winter. So I just wanted to do a quick run through of what we are actually going to be building, just to show everyone, and if anyone has any questions, open it up. So I kind of broke this out into segments. So this is almost a 1.9 mile corridor, so things vary a lot, but kind of broke it up into segments to show you what you could expect here in the spring. So between 4th Street and 6th Street, the existing curb line on the east side of the road we are planning on removing that and moving it closer to the west side. So you'll have a 5-foot grassed green space area. Yeah, I don't know if it'll reach. Yeah, so yeah, in there. And in that grassed area, National Grid will be relocating their poles that are along this stretch, and then the bike path will actually be moved off to the side. So we'll have a good 5-foot separation and a curb between the travel lanes. So this section that we're showing here, it encompasses a few segments of Broadway, so between 6th Street and 8th Street, 16th Street and the 19th Street Bridge, and from 23rd Street to Hudson Shores Park. But basically, what we're trying to do in these segments is we have a wider green space between Broadway and 787. So we're kind of snaking the trail through, try to avoid as many trees as possible. Some trees have been removed already, and we've also been working with the city's tree committee, and we will be replanting trees in the green spaces on either side of the trail, and mainly in these 3 segments here. That's where the most green space is. That's where the most plantings will be. We've worked with the tree committee to come up with 42 new trees that'll be spread out throughout, and the tree committee will come out. They'll select their preferred locations when the contractor's on site, and those will all be planted. So on either side of the Arsenal property, 8th Street to the Arsenal and Arsenal to 16th Street. We will again be removing the existing curb that's out there, putting new curb in. That'll help us create a kind of a 5-foot buffer space between the new bike path and travel lanes. In front of the Arsenal property, this is straightforward. There's no actual road work to be constructed here. We're using the existing roadway and basically shifting travel lanes closest to the Arsenal. So that you'll continue to have 2 travel lanes, created a nice 7-foot buffer space, and the bicycle path.
No green space?
No construction in front of here. This is all being created with striping on the road.
Yeah, the section here between 787 is very narrow. It's also a slight embankment, so we're going to keep it on the pavement, but also to kind of line up with cost. So although most of the trail is off-road, these are some of the segments that are going to be on-road, but building in that buffer, that helps keep some traffic calm in here too.
And we're going to do a better job than we did on 2nd Avenue with the striping?
Yes, but the striping on that is just the clarity or the type of stripe, or
Yeah, I guess it just,
it's gone.
All of
It
the
wore
above,
off.
all of the above.
I guess it is. I can't even
Yes.
tell which.
That's what I thought you might be.
Yeah.
And in front of the Arsenal, I saw the last slide, it looked like between the bike path and 787, there's room for trees being planted, and is that correct?
Here?
On the previous one?
Yeah.
Yes.
How about on that area between the Arsenal? Is there going to be trees, is there room, or is there going to be trees planted in that area?
There is room if the tree committee selects there, but there is already trees along that frontage, so
Cut them down.
See, the new ones are the kind of the lot of
those are existing.
existing trees, those are existing trees.
And the tree committee is also planning on putting, or trying to work with the Arsenal to do the other side,
Okay.
the actual Arsenal side
Oh, okay.
of Broadway.
May I ask the council a question? Is this a mandate of the state, this project mandated?
It was applied for a while back, from what he said, 2013,
And the city approved it,
back in 2013, yes.
and you have to honor what's been approved. What I'm saying is, I'm certainly not in favor of a bike path on 2nd Avenue. There's enough traffic there as it is.
Mr.
Or
Eubank?
on Broadway.
Mr. Eubank?
Yes.
I'm going to cut you off because I don't want to interrupt the presentation. I understand your concerns, and we certainly want to hear them. I just don't know that right now is the right time to hear
Well,
them.
let me ask the gentleman a question then.
Yeah, well, they're here to do a presentation. I'd ask that you just give us the time to address this. We can have more public meetings if you need to. We're certainly open to that. I just don't think right now is the time to ask those
I'll
questions.
honor that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, moving on to the 19th Street Bridge to 23rd Street. In this segment, to create the space to fit a bike path in, we will be installing a gutter, taking out the existing curb, which has little reveal at the moment, but installing asphalt gutter,
Little what? What's that word? Veil?
Reveal.
would be like the part
Oh,
of the curb that sticks above the pavement.
Got it, sorry.
Typically, it's 6 inches,
Yeah.
and when you pave a lot.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, to create space, we designed in a gutter. Gutter will help stormwater stay on the road, and the bike path will be created up where the existing sidewalk is. So, work from the back of the sidewalk towards the road, and maintain two lanes of vehicle travel and parking on the west side.
So the gutter along the road is going to be blacktop?
Yes. Oh no, I'm sorry, concrete.
That'll be concrete.
Concrete, yes.
Yeah, so it'll be differentiating.
Because you did mention, you said blacktop gutter. That's someplace else.
No, I just misspoke.
Okay, all right.
Can we just back up to over here by City Hall with that curve?
Yep.
That's pretty narrow with 2 lanes, with the traffic. Is that coming out 5 feet also, like in front of the Arsenal?
We can show, let's show that plan sheet after we go through these. We have the drawing on an aerial picture, so that, we can hone right in on that in a couple of minutes, we'll bring that up.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Yeah, we're very much right there, yeah.
just give me a sec, I'll find it.
These are the actual engineering drawings. Yeah, we're gonna, I believe there's 1 parking space.
So the bottom half of this is right out here, 15th Street intersection. What's that?
A little closer with the pointer.
Yeah, the pointer's not working, but yeah, we are pushing that curb line closer to City Hall to create the bike path on that side. But we're also taking out about 8 feet of the median node. So the median has a nose to it, a round piece that sticks out into the intersection. We're pulling that back
Okay.
about 8 feet. And because of sight distance, we've also eliminated a parking space right at the corner. That's where there's some hash striping at the corner.
You can see a white car just underneath the striping on the aerial.
Oh, thank you. So by doing that, we were able to shift the movement of cars closer to City Hall and create the space needed to build the bike path on the opposite side.
Can I ask a question? With you taking that boulevard out and moving all the traffic lanes closer to City Hall, it's already really, really hard to come out from City Hall and see left or right with all the cars that are there. Is there anything that you're planning on doing to increase the sight distance?
Which is why we removed the parking space at the corner.
That 1 parking space?
One on each side.
That ain't gonna do nothing.
And by removing the nose of the median.
But by moving the nose of the median, you're moving the lane back where the median was. So now the person that's coming up has to stop even farther back and still can't see.
To come out, yeah.
Yeah, this parking is coming out, so you'll be able to see a lot better. So these vehicles won't be here now. So when you're coming out, you can see a lot further down the road.
So are you planning on rebidding this again? Is
No.
that what you're doing? So you're taking the bid of 1.7?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if contractor's paperwork is all in line,
And who won that?
Louise Brothers is the low bidder.
Louise.
Yes. We did sit down and, with Mark, we met with DOT. DOT administers the funding for this project, and worked through the options, and as long as the contractor's paperwork is in place, it's suggested we move ahead, recommending the bid, or award of the bid.
Yeah, if DOT sees that there's something not right in the bidding, or they feel that the project doesn't warrant that expenditure, they'll usually recommend a rebid on it. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes you also have to change the scope. It's possible some of the off-road segments would get put back on the road to reduce the cost. But the project, as it stands on its merits, said they're willing to fund the extra money. We've already gone from the original project with scope with $500,000, it's really 1.7. The original feasibility study that was done back then in a non-engineering aspect said it was $350,000. So
Right on target.
you know that, but looking at it today, that from their perspective and handling the money through the federal government, that it's warranted, so which is a good thing. So.
But one more question, if I can. So you were saying that from 19th Street up to 23rd Street, you were going to jump onto the curb and use the sidewalk.
Yes.
So when you get to 21st Street, you're going to be using the sidewalk directly in front of somebody's house. So when they walk and step off the curb, they're liable to get hit by a bike.
Well, it's actually considered even though the project is called bike path, it's a multi-use path, so bikes and pedestrians can use it. And yes, it'll be 10 feet wide instead of the 5 feet wide that it is now.
But it's not any closer to the houses as they are now.
But
It goes from where they exist now out back towards the road, so nobody's losing any front part of their property with it.
Except for to park the cars.
Right?
Yes.
yes,
Go with the residents that live there.
Reducing the right turn lane
the right turn lane at the intersection,
at the intersection.
that'll still be there.
Because, like, can you go back to 4th Street, where you come out of the bike path?
Okay.
You go right down the street, then up onto the grass?
4th Street? Here?
Right.
Okay.
Pasnell Payne is there. Are you going up on Pasnell Payne's property?
No.
You're going to go out onto the street
Yes.
and then go down the street till you get past Pasnell Payne, then up onto the grass?
Yes. So,
So as part of that funding for right-of-way acquisition to come in, there's no right-of-way
right-of-way.
issues
No
or anything
right-of-way.
within that?
You avoided that, like,
Good.
yep.
you was a fluke. Yes.
Will there be parking along 787 side, east side of, from Passanel Payne to the Arsenal Wall?
From Passanel Payne to the other. From
East side of where the bike
yeah,
is, is there
from
car
six-
parking?
From about 6th Street to the Arsenal through. The bike path will be off-road, so parking will stay as it is now.
But what about the parking at 4th Street? When you come off out of
No park.
4th, so you're taking away the 6 parking spaces that are there?
Yes,
For
between
the
4th,
residents that live
between
there?
4th Street and in front of Pasano's Payne, between that segment, yes, on the east side.
Do the residents know that down there, or just,
Doesn't
does
matter.
anyone?
I'm part of the public information meeting that we had done. We hope everybody's here to talk about it, and so that was covered at that point.
Can you explain one more, what's happening at 20, I don't understand what's happening at 21st Street. Does it just stop, or does it hook up with the bike path? Or, excuse me, stop, or does it hook up with the park?
Oh,
Or am I getting it?
no. Yeah, we kind of focused on Broadway here. Yeah, so when you get up to 23rd, we parallel 23rd and cross over the 787 on-ramps. That is the bottom portion of that figure. So those yellow X's, that's currently, there's like a path that goes through there, and there's crosswalks halfway up the ramps. So we're removing those as part of this project. Crosswalks will be up on the road like a normal standard intersection. And we are continuing on, and when we cross the off-ramp, go through an existing gate
Right.
and hook up to where the parking area is in the park.
So that's 23rd Street right there.
That's 23rd Street right there, and that's the off-ramp from the park. Okay, thanks.
So you're raising the off-ramp and the on-ramp walkways up farther onto the ramp and off to the ramp, is that what you just said?
Other way around.
We moved it up to the road to act like a
Closer to the road.
closer to the road.
So now I'm walking across the road out of 4 o'clock traffic, cars are gonna just stop in the middle of the intersection and stuff like that?
Well, it's better than the current situation where they're accelerating up to the crosswalk. So yes.
And the tendency will for people not to enter the ramp while someone's in the crosswalk, instead of already being out on there.
So the existing crosswalk as it is today is right here.
Right.
This is the new crosswalk.
Okay.
Which hardly was ever used because it's
Right.
shorter distances
Right.
to go straight.
And long-term, is this, I mean, is the long-term goal to hook this up with the bike path in Cohoes and Colony?
Yeah.
And that goes out to Niskayuna?
So this is part of one of the open connections for the Empire State Trail, which does
Right.
continue on to Green
Right.
Island.
And I'm assuming the town of Colony is going through the same thing that we are right now, and the city of Cohoes is going through the same thing that we are right now?
We just did the Blackbird Trail for Green Island.
And you did?
Yeah,
Right.
we did that.
Okay.
The bridge and
Is this,
park.
would this involve, would this involve it eventually? Would it involve with Blackbridge?
That is the Empire State Trail
It is.
connection. How Green Island gets between A and B is.
They're actually, Green Island is actually doing a road project from Hudson Shores Park all the way down Lower Hudson, which is Mr. Sub, the health.
Yeah.
That'll be shared use, that'll be on road the whole way. So,
Connected to trails.
That'll connect it, so that'll connect from here, in theory, right?
Yep.
So the pedestrians would use
Not
sidewalk,
there,
and
in fact.
bicycles would.
Right.
Yes, the pedestrians on that segment, there was use the sidewalk and bicycles would be shared roadway through the Green Island section. So.
Thank you very much.
I think that's the only spot, I mean, there's a lot of little nuances in the whole trail, but that's the worst spot to contend with.
Most conflict point, the greatest conflict point, yes.
Because, I mean, basically, you see somebody trying to get on that ramp going south, they're looking for traffic to actually let them go through, so they're not paying attention to any bike coming up on that spot. So they're accelerating to get across to beat the car coming west to east, that's going along that way.
Yes, did you
And
look
there's
at
no
any?
way of slowing that down.
At rush hour in the morning, I mean, I go through it, I go to that exact way often. I don't live 5 minutes from here, so it's really driver behavior. The traffic calming elements that we put out here are the best that we have right now, as far as being out there, and then it's just the individual drivers are so hard to predict. So it's such a short distance as well, and like you said, they're rushing, they're coming out and making running lights to get to the 787 all the time.
What do you say, Chief?
Chief, you got any concerns?
Yes. So as a runner, I really do appreciate this because it's dangerous now. So this can only improve the pedestrian safety. So I do appreciate the changes. But the earlier discussion about the lighting, was lighting considered in part of this project?
There's no lighting in the project, we use the existing lighting.
So when you talk about traffic calming and making motorists more aware, I mean, those LED lights, I was part of the project in Albany, point person for the police department, and it's well worth the cost. Even if we don't save anything, it's well worth just the appearance, when you talk about fear of crime and safety, traffic safety. So those lights are a huge component. So the lights there, if you put LED lights, because right now you have that dim orange kind of glow, you put those lights up, especially in these intersections, it's going to make it safer.
So a lighting revamp program along the whole section.
And then, like everyone had mentioned here, the striping on the roadway, I reached out to DOT, they informed us that it's our responsibility, it's not DOT once they turn off 787. But there is, if you're not familiar with it, you have no idea what lane is what, where you're supposed to be, where you turn.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
So I think once you get that striping, the crosswalk, the signage, the green space, some of the other calming effects, and the lighting, I think it has to be safer than it is now. Because I've walked and run that portion of the roadway between Watervliet and Green Island. It's dangerous.
Yeah, the striping for delineation and channelization will be an incredible change for the driving on that road, as you said.
And no one's using the existing crosswalk. No one's going up, crossing, and coming back.
No.
So you put the crosswalk, where it should be, where people they're already crossing. Yeah, it's gonna be safe. But obviously, we'll be mindful of this project, and we talk about the 3 E's, right? Engineering, education, enforcement. So engineering's done. Education will be part of that as far as the city is concerned, and then enforcement.
But you're not doing any other striping beyond this? You're not going up 23rd to 2nd Avenue?
No, not with this project. If something like that.
And that's considered what we have to do?
Yes, and that was very clear from DOT. I looked into it.
What I can suggest is, though, that we can put in, to get the lower bid price on the project, the city element of the contract. Called the betterment part of the contract, so you can get it built in, we just keep it separate from the construction cost. You can maybe get the cost savings on the order of magnitude.
Okay.
Can I just ask one more question? When you had originally come up and done this, there was a lot of questions about the areas where you were going on the road and you were going to use like delineation to show the difference in that lane versus the car lane.
Yep.
But we had also asked if you would be able to put either the flexible cones that are like paper that flop with
Yep.
springs or whatever, but something in there.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to do anything like that, or are you just going to do the paint?
So in addition to the paint, we have added in rumble strips into that space.
Okay.
So in the standards and the guidelines that we follow for our design, so rumble strips are an equivalent to the vertical separation. The vertical tubular markers they're nice when they're first out there, but they hold their own maintenance issues.
Yep.
They don't really last up after winter time, plowing and cold temperatures. So yeah, in those areas we have rumble strips proposed.
Yeah, one thing on that is, for being traffic and highway engineers, if someone's not paying attention when they're driving, they start hitting those markers, they might not even notice them, but you will notice a rumble strip without having to look. So that's kind of the comparison I like to look at. If you're in a truck, you could be running their way over, not even knowing what rumble strips you're going to feel that, even if you don't have to see it to know that you're having an issue there. So that's what we're planning on using, based on some of the input that was in the last meeting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Your Honor, the first order of business is ordinance number 2021. Before I read this, I'd like to bring to your attention, there is a language change in here with the swearing in of Joe Lasavita as the new general manager of the city. Mark Spain is now the deputy general manager of the city, so that will be read with that title included. So with that, ordinance number 2021, the council of the city of Watervliet hereby authorizes and directs Deputy General Manager Mark J. Spain to dispose of those surplus vehicles which have been determined to no longer be needed for municipal purposes and which are of no benefit to the city of Watervliet.
Mayor, I make a motion that we move on the ordinance.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Yeah, so this is a list of several vehicles that are no longer used by any of the departments in the city of Watervliet. They obviously now hold no resale value. We've put them out for bid. There's no bidders on any of the vehicles. So our next step is to contact a tow company to bring them to a scrap yard and scrap them for the scrap metal. We already have a relationship with Dawson's Towing, so we're just going to use that relationship for them to transport the cars. We have 3 at Hudson Shores Park. There's 2 police cars, an old pumper, and an old SUV behind the fire department, and there's 3 vehicles up at the water filtration plant. All those vehicles will be removed hopefully within the next few days and brought to the scrapyard.
This only took a couple of years.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just
Do we have the value of the vehicle?
It's really tough to, a couple of the cars are wrecks. And then the ones that are at Hudson Shores Park have been there, like the mayor said, probably for 2 years.
Well, that's irrelevant, chief. If it's a junk, there's certain things to consider. If it has a resonator on it, it has certain things on it, it has more value. You know, whether you get $50 for it or whether you get $300 for it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I'm not going to make it up, Paul. I have no idea what you're talking about.
We should cut the converters out and sell them.
Right?
They're probably already going.
Probably is.
So we'll see you out there tonight with a work light, Paul? Is that what you're saying?
That's a possibility.
Go ahead, Paul.
I'm available Saturday.
Any other questions? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilman Torrенcello?
In favor.
Councilwoman Dunn?
In favor?
Mayor Patricello?
In favor.
Next order of business is resolution number 9708. The Council of the City of Watervliet hereby approves, ratifies, and confirms the signing and execution of the DMV photo systems user agreement by Police Chief Anthony W. Gerasi.
And Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we move on this resolution.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Chief?
Sure, so this is pertaining to the green light law. So we signed a user agreement. We had no choice but to sign the user agreement if we wanted access to DMV photos information. And the agreement stipulates that we will not share information with ICE or Customs and Border Patrol. And if we didn't sign it, 59 police agencies currently as we speak are in the situation, their access was cut off. So we had to sign this by the date that I indicated there.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
And it really doesn't necessarily 100% pertain to this, but can the police department enter into a contract with DMV and a private to supply DMV information to a private company? And I guess, and the reason I'm talking about is the bus patrol, school
Yes.
cameras. That's a legislation that the legislature passed last year.
Yes.
Can you enter into a contract with a private company to provide DMV information to them?
I don't know the answer to that. Do you know?
No, I don't.
I don't believe we can. We can't offer the pictures or any other information. That's part of the agreement that we can't send.
Yeah, I don't know how the red light cameras get around that, because I know that there's a third-party vendor that reviews the,
Exactly what I'm talking, yeah, exactly.
so there's some access to some information, but I'm not sure what the answer is.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Call the roll, please.
Councilman Torrencello?
In favor.
Councilwoman Dunn?
In favor?
Mayor Patricello?
In favor.
Next order of business is resolution number 9709. The Council of the City of Watervliet hereby authorizes David Wheatley, city clerk and clerk to the council, to advertise once in the official newspaper of the city that sealed bids will be received in the city clerk's office of the City of Watervliet, City Hall, 215th Street, Watervliet, New York, 12189, until 10 a.m. on February 6, 2020, for furnishing chlorine for the City of Watervliet's water department.
Mayor, I make a motion that we move on the resolution.
I'll second that.
We probably had this on for a few times.
Yeah, we're at the dance without a date on this one, so we're hoping the third time's the charm
This is just basically going out for bid for chlorine.
for chlorine. Yep.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Councilman Torrencello?
In favor.
Councilwoman Dunn?
In favor?
Mayor Patricello?
In favor.
The next resolution is number 9710. The Council of the City of Watervliet hereby appoints the Commissioner of Deeds in the City of Watervliet for the period of January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2021.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we move on this resolution.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
I'm going to defer to Corporation Counsel on this one.
Pursuant to New York State law, and also pursuant to the council's wishes, this is a resolution that appoints individuals to act as Commissioner of Deeds in the City of Watervliet, and there are certain requirements in order to become a Commissioner of Deed. The resolution has the individuals' names that are listed on there, and this is a resolution that appoints these individuals. to act as Commissioner of Deeds for a period of 2 years, and that the clerk will certify the resolution and send it down to the Albany County Clerk for him to take the appropriate steps in order to make it legal. Any questions?
This is pretty much similar to a notary.
Correct.
Okay. Call the roll.
Councilman Torrенcello?
In favor.
Councilwoman Diamond?
Favor?
Mayor Patricello?
In favor.
Your Honor, that concludes the new business for this evening.
Appropriations and accounting. And Amanda, this is your first meeting as Director of Finance?
Congratulations.
Before we open up to public comment, first I want to thank the Chief yesterday for a great presentation on the bail reform. If you want to take a comment on it.
You want the meeting to go longer?
No. I thought there was nothing to do.
No, it was a great conversation. It lasted about 2 hours. There was definitely a lot of concerns surrounding the criminal justice reform, which bail reform is one component of that. So I thought it was delivered well. It was fact-based, wasn't opinion-based. And Lieutenant Strzok did a really good job. And a lot of the members from the community did come out, and we answered as many questions and concerns that we could. We were fortunate that David Soares, District Attorney, and his Director of Operations, Chris D'Alessandro, was able to join us. And they really, and I mentioned it last night, and I'll mention it again tonight, when I first began this position, obviously I was new, in July, the District Attorney brought myself, he met with each Chief Police from every municipality and every police department, one-on-one, and then he met with myself and some of the city administration on a second occasion, and then he routinely met collectively. So he really, I mean, from back in July and even to now, we had a meeting this week, we have a meeting next week. He really put us in a position to be compliant, but more importantly, be successful with the new legislation. So we do appreciate that relationship that we have with him and his guidance. But overall, I think it was well. I know Councilwoman Diamond mentioned she was at a conference today, and it was brought up, a statewide conference, that Watervliet put on this forum, and other communities should look to do the same. So I think it was well. I think it was true. Yeah, I think it was really good.
And we had the pleasure of going to a conference today at the New York Conference of Mayors, and Councilwoman Diamond and Mayor Pacelli and I went for sort of like a boot camp for all new legislators. Really informative. Got a lot of great information. I don't want to make the meeting any longer. But yeah, at that meeting they talked about the city of Watervliet and what a great job the city of Watervliet was doing in educating its residents, and the job that the police chief's doing. So it was a great day. We had a good day. So thank you, Mayor, for inviting me, and it was good.
Good. Okay. Open up to public comment now.
At this time, the council has authorized a public comment period. If you wish to address the council, you must step forward, state your name, address for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the council on any matters you wish.
Paul Eubank, 1500 12th Avenue, Watervliet. Really, I wanted to speak on the church, but Chief took the wind right out of my sails. I guess the things I wanted to discuss were discussed. I'd like to mention one thing on 9th Avenue between 19th Street and Clinton. I think National Grid should go back temporarily and cold patch those excavations that are very bad to get by the winter. I talked about that before. Nothing was done. Maybe someone could consider getting those people to respond. The last thing, I'd like to take the opportunity of thanking Councilwoman Barb Diamond and Councilman Peter Patricelli for attending a meeting in regard to the community development with Chazen Company. Both councilmen had very important issues they presented to the meeting. I'd like to thank them. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Peter. The meeting was very informative, and I appreciate them for attending. Thank you.
Thanks for letting us be horned in on this time. didn't we?
Right, yes.
Yeah. We took up your time, so we appreciate you letting us jump in on your time. Okay, it's good.
Anyone else? Okay.
Paul Hughes, 108 15th Street. I also wanted to say something about the church, and I'm glad that you guys made a presentation about that. One thing that I'd like to ask is for you guys to look into your procedure as far as what you're doing as far as towing cars. I was on a parks committee where there was many people that were trying to develop the parks, develop ways to get people into it. I see that you guys are looking to, you know, create another way, an entrance to get down in there to make it more useful and more accessible. But I don't feel that using it for a storage facility for everybody's cars that's impounded and closing it off to the city is of any use to the city people. The city people that want to go in there and have their lunch are removed. I was asked to leave because DOT was doing something in there. It's not DOT property, it's city property. It should be used for us. The bathrooms have been closed down there since I was a kid. Every time there's a function, you got to use a porta potty. They're there, they've got water, everything's there. Maybe we got to revamp them a little bit, but that's part of making it nicer and making it usable, is letting people down there to walk their dog over the winter or just get out of their car and stretch. Maybe they get off 23rd Street and they just want to go in and sit by the river for a few minutes. But to have it, for storage, I feel like we just let these people come in and leave their car there, pay $200-300 for the winter and leave it, and then pick it up at the end, and that's not the way it should be done. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Anyone else? And move we close the public hearing? Or public comment here?
Guess I'll second it. Yep.
Motion to adjourn. Is there anything else? Motion to adjourn?
I'll second it. Did Mr. Pats, did the mayor make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
Mr. Wheatley?
Councilman Torrance.
In favor.
Councilwoman Diamond.
In favor.
Mayor Patricelli.
In favor. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Next meeting will be February 6th.